Fasten your seatbelts. You're about to learn how, using the power of technology, I turned my wife's infidelity against her in ways she never saw coming. No yelling, no fighting, just strategy, silence, and something she'll remember every time she checks the mailbox. She was secretly cheating on me, but my skills helped me investigate, remain undetected, and disappear without a trace. And then came the punishment, cold, calculated, and unforgettable. But first, let's go back to where it all began. If you had asked me 2 years ago if I thought my wife would ever lie to me, I would have laughed and said, no way. Not Brooke. She was my best friend, my neighbor who grew more beautiful to me every year, and the person who once told me, I'd rather be poor and honest with you than rich and fake with someone else. Yeah, that line hit differently later. We'd been married just over 5 years. The first 4? Honestly, a dream. Weekend trips to little coastal towns. Lazy Sundays eating pancakes in bed. She'd doodle on napkins and show me new ideas for her design projects, and I'd help her set up her website, her client contacts, her invoicing. She called me her silent business partner. I was happy just to be included. But about 8 months ago, something changed. Not all at once. More like a slow leak. A draft you don't notice until the room's already cold. It started with the phone. Brooke used to be the kind of woman who tossed her phone in her purse and forgot it existed. She once asked me how to close the little squares on her browser tabs. She used to complain about technology and how social media gave her anxiety. One time, she even asked me to delete my Instagram because she said, it's not real connection. It's just a highlight reel of people trying to impress strangers. So you can imagine how off it felt when she suddenly became glued to her phone like it was a second limb. At first, I thought maybe she was managing more clients. Business had picked up, after all. I'd see her smiling at her screen while stirring pasta or lounging on the couch. I'd ask what was funny, and she'd just say, oh, just a dumb meme, and flip her phone face down. No sharing. No showing. Just hiding. She started turning off read receipts. Her lock screen changed from a picture of us at lake to some abstract art piece. She started taking calls on speaker, but only when I wasn't in the room. I'd come in, and she'd quickly end the call with a talk later. Bye. The first time it happened, I chalked it up to her being busy. The 5th time, I felt the sting. She also got edgy. Like she was mad at me for asking normal questions. One night, I asked if she wanted to watch a movie, and she sighed like I'd asked her to clean the garage. You always pick boring stuff, she snapped. That wasn't her. And now everything I did felt like an inconvenience to her. I started staying late at work just to avoid the tension. Even when we were home together, we weren't together. And then there was Trev. It was a Tuesday night. We were halfway through some show she insisted on watching, one of those drama reality things where couples yell at each other in Bali. I wasn't really paying attention. Brooke was scrolling through her phone like always. I leaned over to grab the remote and saw a message pop up on her screen. Trev. No last name. Just that. And the kissy face emoji. She tilted the screen away so fast you'd think it was the nuclear launch code. I asked, casually, who's Trev? She froze for a second, then smiled like I was being silly. Oh, Trayvon. From the studio. He's helping with the Edison remodel. He sends dumb stuff to everyone. I nodded. Said nothing. But my gut twisted like someone wrung it out like a dish towel. I'm not the jealous type. Never have been. I've always believed in giving space and trusting your partner. But something about that exchange, the flicker in her voice, the speed with which she hid the phone. It wasn't right. I started noticing her outfits changing too. Not in a bad way, just different. More makeup. More attention to detail. I'd ask how her lunch went and get a distracted fine. I'd ask who she saw, and she'd rattle off names I'd never heard before. It was like living with a beautiful stranger. But I kept calm. I didn't accuse. I didn't snoop. Not yet. I figured, maybe she's just going through something. A midlife fuck. A burnout patch. But the thing is, when you live with someone long enough, you know the rhythms. You know what silence really sounds like. And this silence? It wasn't tired. It was calculated. Something was off. Something real. And I knew, if I wanted answers, I'd need to stop guessing and start knowing. I'm not proud of what I did next. But I'd be lying if I said I regret it. I've worked in cybersecurity for over 15 years. Started with basic IT jobs, then got into penetration testing, basically trying to break into networks to find the holes before the bad guys do. These days I consult for private clients, a mix of tech firms and law enforcement contracts. It's not glamorous, but I know my way around a system. I know how to track, trace, record, and retrieve just about anything that lives in the digital world. So, when Brooke stepped into the shower that night, Spotify blaring from her phone on the bathroom sink, I grabbed her backup phone from the nightstand. She kept an older iPhone just in case, but used it now and then for playlists, photo storage, and backups. Lucky me, it still had her iCloud login saved. 10 minutes. That's all I needed. I mirrored everything. Synced it to a private drive on a sandboxed laptop I keep in my office. Texts, call logs, voicemails, photos, even her location history. I installed a silent sync tool so the next time she connected to Wi-Fi, it would update automatically. She never even noticed. I felt like a dirtbag afterward. I didn't want to spy on my wife. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted the logs to show boring chats with her sister and Pinterest boards full of tile samples. But that's not what I found. The first few days were quiet. Group chats, client calls. Then came Friday. That's when the name Trev finally showed up in full. Travis Rhodes. I recognized the name from one of her older projects. She'd worked with him half a year ago, a tall guy with a Ford pickup truck and a handshake that had too much effort in it. The messages started innocent enough. Project talk. Flooring. Paint colors. Then came the emojis. Winking faces. Flames. That night, while I sat in bed next to her, she messaged him under the covers. I watched the messages roll in through my Mirror app like some horrible live feed. Can't stop thinking about the last time. Still feel your hands on me. Jason's here. LOL. Dead to the world as usual. You make me feel alive again. Like I'm 20. My chest went cold. Then came the photos. She sent him mirror shots. Black lace. New sets I'd never seen before. Said she bought them during a girls' shopping trip to prep for our anniversary. I thought she was picking out something special for me. Instead, she was giving him a full runway preview. She posed for the camera in the bathroom I cleaned. On the bed I built. Framed by the nightstand, I spent 3 weekends refinishing by hand. He replied with his own masterpiece, shirtless in a dingy garage gym, flexing like a third-rate action hero. She responded with fire emojis and told him he looked dangerous. Me? I guess I'm just stable. That's what she used to call me, like it was a compliment. Turns out, stable wasn't exciting enough anymore. I kept reading. Jason's so boring now. He just stares at spreadsheets all day. It's like being married to a printer. That one actually made me laugh, quietly, bitterly. I guess even betrayal can come with punchlines. The worst part? She wasn't just lying to me. She was rewriting our life in real time, erasing everything we built with a few taps of her thumbs. I'd kiss her forehead and tell her to drive safe, and she'd be texting him about how she missed the way he grabbed her by the waist. It was all there in plain text. Undeniable. No room for misinterpretation. I didn't confront her that week. I didn't slam doors or cry or scream. I just watched, listened, and learned. She thought she was clever, that she'd never get caught, that she could play house with me while living some secret soap opera on the side. So, when she came prancing in that Saturday afternoon with the shopping, I just smiled and nodded. She held up some silk thing, twirled, and asked, "Think this would be fun for our anniversary weekend?" I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "Looks great. Have fun at your bachelorette party next weekend." She beamed, kissed my cheek. I stood there thinking how strange it was that she could lie so easily, how practiced it had all become. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. A few days after, I told her I had a cybersecurity conference coming up. Singapore, I said while sipping my coffee like it was nothing. Last minute. She barely looked up from her phone. "How long?" "Friday through Monday. It's a client thing. Can't get out of it." I watched her for a reaction, just out of curiosity. She kept a neutral face, but there was a flicker of something. Excitement? Relief? Whatever it was, it lasted half a second before she gave me this half frown. She even offered to drop me off at the airport, which I politely declined. Told her I'd grab a rideshare and avoid the parking fees. She didn't fight me on it. That Friday morning, I watched her get ready. She packed a small suitcase, tossed in a pair of heels I hadn't seen in over a year, and wore this floral blouse I knew wasn't for blending in. I waited exactly 45 minutes after she left. Gave her time to get some distance. Then I got in my car and followed the GPS tracker I'd tucked into the lining of her suitcase. I knew she wouldn't notice. The thing was barely the size of a flash drive, magnetized and disguised as a luggage tag. She drove north, out of the city. I kept back, switching lanes when I had to, staying just enough behind to stay out of view. About 2 hours later, she exited near a small town that was all pine trees and old diners. Quaint, quiet. The kind of place people go when they want to disappear for a weekend. I parked about a block away and watched as she pulled into a long gravel driveway and got out. That's when I saw him. Travis. Same shiny black F-150. Same puffed-up chest and smug strut. He hopped out of his truck and gave her a full-on twirl hug, like something out of a rom-com. She laughed, loud and high-pitched, and then they walked toward a small lake house tucked behind some trees. It was a decent place. Blue shutters, big porch, rental lockbox on the door. I watched them go inside together, no one else in sight. No balloons, no other cars, no signs of a girls' weekend or bachelorette anything. Just two people playing house. I waited another 15 minutes, then drove past slow, scoping the place out. There was a side window cracked open on the far end and a small path leading to the back porch. Later that afternoon, after grabbing a burger at a roadside spot and checking into a nearby motel under a fake name, I came back. I parked half a mile away, hiked through some brush, and approached from the woods behind the property. Quiet as I could. I'd brought a small case from my office. Inside, a few motion-triggered cameras, each about the size of a golf ball, and preloaded with encrypted memory cards. I installed 2 cameras outside, one facing the porch, another covering the back patio. The third I slid through the cracked window into a vent that overlooked the main living room. They wouldn't notice it unless they were looking for it, which I doubted. No sound, just video. I didn't want to hear their voices. I already knew what they sounded like when they laughed together. It was worse than yelling. It was like hearing your own name being rewritten. Once the cameras were set, I left. Quiet. Focused. No dramatics. No shaking hands. I went back to my motel, plugged in my laptop, and waited for the feeds to sync. Took about 20 minutes for everything to upload to the secure cloud I'd set up ahead of time. Then I sat there in that dim room, cheap carpet underfoot, drinking vending machine coffee out of a styrofoam cup, and stared at the screen. I watched the two of them walk around the lake house like it was theirs. I watched Brooke toss her hair back in that way she used to do when she wanted my attention. I watched her curl up on the couch, feet in his lap, wearing the same leggings she wore for movie nights with me. I watched her laugh at him. Really laugh. She hadn't laughed like that at me in a long time. I sat still, breathing steady, and I kept watching. Because I wasn't guessing anymore. I was gathering proof. I didn't know what I'd do next. Not yet. But I knew this. The bachelorette party didn't exist. The anniversary trip was a cover. The woman I loved had made her choice. And I was done pretending not to see it. Later that night, they cooked together. Pasta, I think. Brooke was stirring a pot while Travis opened a bottle of red. She dipped a spoon in and held it to his lips, then licked the same spoon and tossed it back in the pot. Small things. But all of them said more than words ever could. Every action, every look, told the story loud and clear. This wasn't some accidental mistake. This was a full-blown vacation from the truth. I spent the night in that cheap motel, watching the screen like a guard dog on night shift. The cameras caught them at the kitchen table, glasses full, voices low but expressive. They toasted. She leaned across the table and kissed him again. Then they disappeared from view. It didn't take much imagination to fill in the blanks. The way they walked down the hallway. The trail of clothes. The closed door. The shaking floorboards. My stomach twisted, but I didn't turn it off. Saturday morning, they came out like it was just another day in paradise. She wore one of his flannel shirts. Hair tied up, sunglasses perched on her head, looking carefree and new. I watched them drink coffee on the porch. I watched him rub her shoulders while she scrolled through her phone. At noon, I pulled the GPS logs from her phone's mirrored data. They lined up exactly with the camera footage. A perfect timeline. I added timestamps, cross-checked the text logs. She'd sent me a message around 4:30 p.m. Friday. Hope your flight went okay. I'll probably order sushi and crash early. So tired. Meanwhile, I had video of her uncorking a second bottle of wine at 4:28 and climbing into Travis's lap by 4:35. Later that night, around 9 o'clock, she left him a voicemail. I'd set up remote access to her backup phone's voicemail via a digital clone, and the message synced while I was running logs. She spoke in a whisper, giggling. God, I wish I could stay in this little bubble forever. Jason he doesn't make me feel anything anymore. I feel like a houseplant with him. She paused, let out this soft sigh, and added, This just feels real. You make me feel real again. I played that message twice. Not because I didn't believe it the first time. Just to make sure I wouldn't forget the way she said, real. By the end of Saturday, I had hours of footage, dozens of GPS markers, and a whole thread of communications that painted the full picture. No guesswork, no speculation, just reality. Sunday morning, I started compiling everything. I labeled the video files, added date stamps, organized them by room and angle. I matched text messages to video clips, confirmed they lined up to the minute. The report was almost surgical, clinical. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just facts. That afternoon, I created a private folder on a secure drive, locked with two-factor authentication. Into it, I dropped everything: the videos, message threads, voicemail audio, and location data. I set the folder to be accessible to one anonymous account, one I created with no trace back to me, no linked email, no identifiable data. Then I connected that account to the company directory where Brooke worked. I looked up their HR contacts the week before. Their internal reporting system allowed anonymous third-party submissions. Just a name, a file, and an explanation. I didn't write anything emotional. I didn't rant. I simply uploaded the folder, labeled it for internal review, professional conduct concern, and hit submit. Then I logged out and closed the laptop. It wasn't about revenge. Not in that moment. It was about truth. She created a lie and built a whole life inside of it. I just turned the lights on. By the time I checked the live feed again later that night, they were back on the porch, toasting again, smiling at each other like the world was theirs. And in a way, it was. But they had no idea who else was watching. Brooke worked for a mid-sized interior design firm, high-end, image-obsessed, full of sharp blazers, soft lighting, and people who talk with their hands too much. They did luxury residential spaces, boutique hotels, restaurants with menu fonts designed to intimidate. I helped her build her portfolio site 3 years ago. But in the last year, she'd become the rising star. Their social media page posted her face more than project shots. She did a talk at a trade expo. Got a minor feature in a digital magazine. Last month, the firm's Instagram posted a shot of her standing in a modern kitchen she helped design, arms crossed, chin up, with the caption, "Queen of Design, Brooke Riley turning vision into reality." It got shared around. Her phone buzzed for days. Clients, old college friends, family, everyone chiming in. She posted it to her own feed with a little crown emoji in her bio. That was the moment I knew she saw herself differently now. Like she'd leveled up, and maybe I wasn't on that level anymore. So, I got to work. First, I made a document. A clean, polished resume-style breakdown of her freelance weekend projects, written in the kind of vague, elevated language design firms eat up. I included collaborative off-site work with private contractors, creative leadership in personal development spaces, and a few references to exclusive weekend design retreats. The phrasing was just harmless enough to not sound accusatory. But it read wrong. I made sure it did. Then I attached a couple of screenshots, just enough to suggest something more was going on than floor plans and swatches. One was a blurry frame from the porch camera. The other was a text message from Travis, timestamped during the same weekend Brooke was supposedly on her bachelorette getaway. I found 3 of her competitors. One firm in Manhattan where she once interviewed. One boutique outfit in Connecticut. One in Boston that followed her on Instagram. I created 3 different anonymous emails, different IP masks, different timestamps. Each email included a message like this. Thought your team might want to take a look before making any recruitment decisions. Not judging, just sharing. Seems like someone's mixing business with pleasure. I sent them out mid-morning on a Tuesday, right around the time most office folks are knee-deep in coffee and email. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't need one. After that, I began preparations for divorce. I took the papers to my lawyer and waited a few days for everything to be ready. Brooke had no idea what I was planning. After that, I started digging deeper. I remembered that Travis, Brooke's sidekick, had been hired through her firm. She'd mentioned once that he came recommended by her boss's husband. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. So I looked up her boss. Gina Madson, mid-50s, ran the firm with a velvet fist. Everything about her screamed brand first. Always wore all black, always had a glass of something in her hand at parties. Her husband, Alan, handled property investments and occasionally funneled contractors into Gina's projects. Turns out, Travis had done at least 3 jobs under that partnership. He'd also been at a holiday party with Brooke and Gina. There was a group photo on Facebook from last year. Travis was behind Brooke, hand on her shoulder, smiling like he belonged there. So, I found Gina's personal contact email. Not her work one. Her old email linked to a foundation newsletter she'd signed up for. That led me to her Instagram, which led me to a tag on a fundraiser account, which finally gave me a donation list with her husband's full name. I matched the billing address to their home. Then I printed off 2 hotel receipts from Brooke's credit card, one from the lake house rental, one from a hotel stay 3 weeks earlier where Travis's name showed up on the booking. I slid those into an envelope, wrote only this on a small card. Thought you might want to know what kind of extracurriculars are being billed under your name. No signature. No threats. Just clean, quiet delivery. I mailed it. That night, I sat back in my chair, closed my laptop, and stared out the window for a while. The apartment was quiet. Brooke was still out, running late with a client dinner. I already knew where she really was. I didn't even check the footage that night. I didn't need to. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad anymore. It felt like tying the last knot on a package I'd been wrapping for weeks. I didn't make threats. I didn't trash her reputation with lies. I just held up a mirror and let people draw their own conclusions. The corporate design world is petty. It thrives on image, polish, perception. Word travels fast in places where everyone drinks at the same rooftop bars and knows the same dozen names. And Brooke Riley, queen of design, had built her throne on matchsticks. All I had to do was light the first one. Sunday evening rolled around quiet and slow, the way it does when you've already done what needed doing and there's nothing left to say. She was supposed to be back around 7 p.m. I knew this because she'd mentioned it on Thursday in passing while scrolling through her phone. We'll probably hit the road after lunch. Should be home before dark. I didn't ask who we was. She didn't offer. By the time her car turned into the driveway, I was already gone. I'd packed what I needed early that morning and dropped it off at my buddy Caleb's place. Spare clothes, work laptop, charger. He didn't ask too many questions. Just nodded and pointed to the guest room. I didn't want to be there when she got home. Not because I was scared. Not because I owed her the chance to explain. I just didn't want to give her a performance. She'd had her stage. This wasn't going to be another scene where I played the fool. I'd left the front door unlocked, not wide open, just enough to creak if the wind pushed it. I imagined her stepping inside, tired but satisfied, expecting to find the place just how she left it. The house was empty in a way she'd never seen it before. Not physically. There was furniture, the TV, the rug by the door, but empty like something sacred had been scooped out of it. All her belongings were stacked neatly in boxes along the hallway wall, labeled clean. Her closet had been packed by color. Her bathroom drawer organized and sealed. I made sure nothing was broken or dumped. I'm not messy with goodbyes. The pictures were off the walls. The wedding photo in the hallway? Gone. Our trip to Charleston? Gone. The gallery wall of little framed memories, tickets, postcards, handwritten notes, taken down, patched, and painted over. Above the staircase hung a simple white banner. Black block letters. I printed them one by one and taped them with precision. Goodbye, cheater. Enjoy life in the cubicle. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about clarity. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't confusion. It wasn't a conversation. It was done. On the kitchen table sat a plain manila folder. Inside, the divorce papers. Clean. Straightforward. No theatrics. Just the truth on paper, signed where I needed to sign. Next to it, my lawyer's business card, clipped to the front with a small silver paperclip. And on top of that, a folded piece of lined paper, torn from one of those yellow legal pads I always kept in my desk drawer. It said, I would have remade our life. You remade it with lies. Simple. One sentence. No guilt. No blame beyond what she already knew. She called me. I didn't answer. Then again. The calls came steady. Some just rang out. Others stopped after 2 seconds, probably when she realized I wasn't going to pick up. The messages started pouring in next. Where are you? What is this? Jason, we need to talk. You're overreacting. You don't understand what was going on. Please just come home. She called 7 times that night. Texted until her battery must have died, or maybe she gave up. I don't know. By then I was sitting in Caleb's garage, beer in hand, watching him shuffle tools around like he wasn't listening, even though he was. We didn't talk much. We didn't have to. I crashed on the pull-out couch in his basement. Slept better than I had in months. She hadn't cried yet. That would come later. Probably when the reality set in. When she realized this wasn't a timeout. There was no conversation waiting around the corner. The house wasn't ours anymore. not the way it had been. It had turned from a home into a container of truth, and she got to see what her truth looked like. Not loud, not violent, just clear. She played a long game of pretending, and for a while, I played along without knowing. But I don't bluff, and I don't fold. She was the one who bet everything on a lie. Monday morning rolled in gray and quiet, the way it always does after a storm. I didn't go to work that day. Took the day off. It felt better than it should have. I didn't have to guess what Brooke was doing that morning. I knew her schedule down to the minute. Her firm had a weekly design meeting every Monday at 8:30 sharp. Everyone dressed like they were on the cover of a magazine. From what I heard later, through a friend of a friend in the industry, her boss, Gina, was already waiting at the door when she came in. So was someone from HR. They didn't make a scene. That wasn't Gina's style. She was the kind of woman who could tear you in half with a smile on her face and a clipboard in hand. Very polished. Very quiet. Brooke was probably blindsided, though I'm sure she tried to act like she knew what was going on the whole time. I don't know how much they said or what language they used. Corporate firms love their realignments and internal reviews. But the result was clear. Her nameplate came off the frosted glass office that afternoon. They didn't fire her. That would have been too messy, too public. Instead, they reassigned her. Took her off the big client account she'd spent 6 months prepping for. Gave it to someone younger, less visible, but safer. Then they moved her into a shared cubicle tucked into the back left corner of the floor plan, between the copy room and the server closet. She now sat next to 2 interns who called her ma'am and offered her granola bars when they microwaved noodles. I pictured her sitting there in that windowless box, surrounded by people who used to smile at her in meetings, now avoiding her in the hallway like she carried some contagious illness. Her Instagram went dark. The crown emoji vanished from her bio. The firm didn't tag her in any new posts. The comment section on her last photo, her standing in that pristine white kitchen, arms folded like a magazine cover model, sat frozen, unanswered. Clients she'd worked with stopped returning her calls. One of them posted publicly that they'd decided to go in a new creative direction. Another ghosted entirely, pulled out halfway through a contract. Her name started slipping out of mouths at networking events. Not with drama, just hesitation, doubt. Reputation in that world is like glass. Once you get a crack in it, people stop drinking from the cup. She texted me 2 days after her demotion. "You ruined my career." I didn't reply. But I remember looking at the message, reading it twice, and thinking how easy it was for her to pin it on me. Like she forgot what I'd been watching. What she'd been doing. No, honey. You ruined it. I just made sure people could see it from orbit. There was a court date a month later. Neither of us fought. There wasn't much to split. We didn't have kids, didn't own the house, we rented. No joint accounts beyond utilities. I made more than her, so technically I could have pushed for some compensation. I didn't. I just wanted out. We sat in a plain courtroom, side by side but a mile apart. She wore a blouse I'd seen once before, back when we used to go out on Fridays and pretend we were young again. Her makeup was clean, her hair pulled tight. She looked like someone trying to hold the last bit of structure in a building already collapsing. I kept my eyes on the judge, signed what I needed to, collected my copy of the decree, nodded to my lawyer, and walked out without a word. Outside, in the hallway, she followed me, called my name softly, like she wasn't sure if she still had the right to. "Jason." I didn't stop. She took another step. "Wait. Please, can I just..." But I kept walking. Not fast. Not angry. Just forward. She didn't chase me. She didn't cry, not there. Maybe she thought she could still fix it with a few words. That I'd turn around, give her a chance to explain. Maybe she'd finally realized she was sorry. But I wasn't in the business of patching up what someone else burned down. She had built a life on top of a shaky foundation and danced on the roof while it cracked. All I did was walk away before it fell. It's been 3 months. I live in a small rental now, on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, quiet neighbors, a coffee shop down the street. At first, the silence was loud. It echoed in my chest. But now, I like the quiet. It belongs to me. There's no tension hiding behind it. She still texts. Long ones, mostly. They bounce between emotional pleas and subtle jabs. One night, she wrote 4 paragraphs about how she still doesn't understand how things fell apart. The next morning, I got a single line. "You always were good at pretending nothing was wrong." Some days, it's apologies. Other days, accusations. She once wrote that I was cold and controlling, that I invaded her privacy. and made her feel watched. Another time, she called me creepy with the tech stuff. Said it was unnatural. That made me laugh. She's told some mutual friends that I manipulated everything. That I twisted the truth. The truth is, I don't even read the messages past the preview anymore. I let them pile up. I haven't blocked her. Not out of hope. Just out of indifference. The anger faded faster than I thought it would. The grief stuck around longer. Not for her, but for the life I thought we were building. I don't hate her, but I don't miss her. She was beautiful, charismatic, sharp, and when it suited her, she could be kind. But behind all of that was something hollow, something selfish. She underestimated the kind of man who doesn't need noise to get his point across. Brooke built her story around charm and image. She thought she could lie in style, decorate betrayal like one of her showrooms. She didn't expect a man who knew how to dismantle things quietly. So that's what I did. I walked away like a shadow, and she'll be living with mine for a long, long time. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? Did the husband go overboard with the punishment when he ruined her career? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.